So today I'm looking at another underappreciated sci-fi movie from before Hollywood was obsessed with pushing the message. Edge of Tomorrow is another Tom Cruise sci-fi movie. Released in 2014, this is a strange one for me because I didn't actually see this in the cinema. Prior to this week, I'd never actually watched this film all the way through. This was one of those films that's been on the television many times over the years, and every time it's been on, I never managed to catch it from the start. I'd turn on the TV and find it was already way past the halfway point or almost over. I never felt a driving need to see this film. From what I'd seen of it, I really wasn't all that wowed, and the trailers didn't pull me in either. But it's been recommended to me by so many of you, so this week I actually went out of my way to watch it all the way through from the beginning. And you know what? It's not a bad movie at all. In fact, it's pretty decent. Having said that, I don't think it's as strong as something like Oblivion, for example. This is ultimately a time travel action movie, and time travel as a concept can be difficult to do well, and can often challenge one's suspension of disbelief with distracting and confusing paradoxes, and can sometimes have a lot of boring exposition. What's more, every time travel story has to set up how its particular type of time travel works. The rules have to be clear and never broken in order for it to be accepted by the audience. Edge of Tomorrow's time travel is the Groundhog Day effect. So basically the day keeps repeating over and over in a loop. In Groundhog Day, the main character of Phil would repeat the same day when the day was finished, either by going to sleep that night or by dying. In the case of Edge of Tomorrow, the main character of Bill Cage, played by Tom Cruise, resets the day every time he's killed. Edge of Tomorrow was not a box office smash. It had a budget of $178 million, but only made $370 million worldwide, which means it underperformed. But as often happens, there's been a renewed appreciation for this film over the years, so much so that there's been a lot of talk of a possible sequel. Now, I actually don't think this kind of film lends itself to a sequel. Edge of Tomorrow feels very much like a standalone affair to me. The story is about an alien invasion from a race known as Mimics. They arrive at Earth by means of an asteroid, and they quickly take control of Europe. They remind me a bit of the Sentinels from The Matrix in terms of design, but their movement and behavior is unpredictable, high intensity, and frenetic. They appear to be part machine. The United Defense Force has been formed, and through the development of a special mech combat suit, humanity records its first victory over the Mimics in Verdun. The plan now is to take Europe via France. Major William Cage is in public relations for the US military, and he's assigned by General Brigham, played by Brendan Gleeson, to cover the engagement, the storming of the beach. Cage objects because he'd be placed in a major combat situation right in the line of fire, to which he is greatly unsuited because he has no combat experience. He's not really a soldier and can't stand the sight of blood. But Brigham is ordering him, and when Cage tries to run, he's tasered, sent to Heathrow where he's been demoted, and forced to fight on the front line with J Squad, where he will be thrust into battle using a mech suit. He meets a ragtag team of soldiers who initially dislike him because he's been branded a deserter. The late Bill Paxton puts in a great performance as Master Sergeant Farrell. Cage is thrown in the deep end, completely out of his depth, and facing certain death in battle given his lack of experience. But what becomes apparent very quickly is that the Mimics were waiting for them, and the battle is a massacre. Cage kills a large blue mimic called an Alpha using an explosive, but in so doing he's killed also. But he's covered in the mimic's blood and suddenly finds himself awakening back at Heathrow again. The day has restarted. Skipping ahead a little bit, it's explained that the Mimics are a superorganism, one collective mind controlled by a central intelligence called the Omega. When Alphas are killed, the Omega can reset the day and alter its strategy until it figures out how to win the battle. Humanity recorded its first victory over the Mimics only after Sergeant Rita Vrataski, played by Emily Blunt, was also exposed to alpha blood. When this happens, the person takes control of the Omega's ability to reset the day. Rita had this Groundhog Day ability for some time, enabling her to become a fearsome warrior and helping to secure victory at Verdun. But she also lost the ability when she was wounded in battle and had to have a blood transfusion. Cage is the latest person to obtain this ability. So he eventually finds her in battle. She realizes he has the ability, and she tells him the next time he goes into a time loop that he has to seek her out. So the story primarily focuses on their repeated attempts to turn the tide in battle and locate and destroy the Omega, based on unusual dreams Cage starts having about its whereabouts. A lot of the fun, and some of the humor of the movie, is tied up in Cage's repeated attempts at learning, training, and developing knowledge of the future based on repeated deaths and resurrections in combat. Occasionally, it's even necessary for Rita to trigger a reset by shooting him if he gets seriously injured but not killed. I was wondering throughout the film, and still even now, why Cage was being reset specifically to the moment where he awakens at Heathrow. How do these resets work exactly? Is it just that you get reset back to the last time you woke up? Is becoming conscious an important factor? Or is it a kind of 24-hour timer? That aspect of it was never explained fully. Rita tells Cage that she's tried many times to explain what's happening to her military superiors, but every time she does, it always ends the same way, being sent to the psych ward and dissected. It's maybe a bit of a convenient plot point. However, eventually Cage does have to use his future knowledge of the other J Squad members to convince them to take part in a final battle against the Omega. For much of the film, we experience the story from Cage's perspective, but that changes briefly and subtly when Rita assumes the audience's perspective and Cage now has knowledge of the future that we aren't privy to. This becomes evident when they wind up at an abandoned farmhouse, and Cage explains that no matter what he does, he can't stop her from dying at that point. He must learn to let go of trying to save her, and for a time he chooses a different path. I think Tom Cruise does a great job portraying the development of Cage, who progresses from the squeamish, cowardly, and completely out of his depth incompetent officer in the beginning to the highly capable and confident soldier through learning from his mistakes and experiences of the same moments over and over. Likewise, Emily Blunt is wonderful as Rita, a hardcore combat veteran seemingly toughened by war but still possessing a relatable humanity and vulnerability underneath it all. However, I'm not sure their romance really works all that well, to be honest, as the relationship feels more like a professional one, and the romance aspect of it just seems tacked on and a tad forced. Edge of Tomorrow is a well-executed movie, decent script, solid direction, high production values, great visual effects. It's well-paced, there's enough intrigue, suspense, and quality action that makes this film a fun ride. The Groundhog Day time loop element of the story has obviously been done before in other films and TV shows, perhaps well known in the Groundhog Day movie, of course, from 1993, the X-Files episode Monday, the Twilight Zone episode Try Try, and the Star Trek The Next Generation episode Cause and Effect, as well as other series. I will say I do find the Edge of Tomorrow's explanation for how the time travel aspect of it works a little bit weak and hard to fully buy into, and with time travel concepts like this, you have to have buy-in from the audience. The idea that Cage somehow assumed the Omega's ability to reset the day by merely being exposed to an Alpha's blood seems too much of a logical stretch for me. But thankfully the film's strengths more than make up for this minor weakness. I think if this film had been made today, Cage would probably be repeatedly put in his place, talked down to, demeaned, hectored, and outshone by Rita. It's refreshing to look back and see a healthy portrayal of a male-female duo working as equals with mutual respect, and where the woman isn't a Mary Sue. If you haven't seen Edge of Tomorrow before, I definitely think it's worth your time. It's not a perfect movie, but it's better than a lot of the stuff that comes out of Hollywood at the moment. And if you haven't seen it for a while, maybe now's a good time for a rewatch. Thanks very much for watching this video. Be sure to hit that like button, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please share this video. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.